The sledgehammer's first swing cracked through the dawn like a gunshot, splintering the cedar planks of my dock into jagged shards. I froze mid-sip, coffee scalding my tongue, as Karen's shrill voice sliced through the morning mist. "This eyesore's coming down. Travis, you can't just build whatever you want." Her peroxide blonde hair gleamed under the rising sun, a beacon of self-righteous fury, as she swung again, her floral cardigan flapping like a battle flag. My dock-me-quiet refuge on Ranch Creek, where I'd spent countless evenings casting lines and watching the stars ripple in the water, was crumbling under her wrath. I'd built it with my own hands, every nail driven with the memory of my late father, who'd taught me to fish on this very creek. And now, Karen, the HOA's self-appointed dictator, was tearing it apart. I stumbled out of my cabin, boots crunching on the gravel path, heart pounding like a war drum. The air smelled of damp earth and pine, but all I could focus on was the splintered wood flying from her blows. "Karen, stop," I shouted, voice hoarse, my breath fogging in the chilly September air. She didn't even glance my way, just kept swinging, her face twisted with that smug satisfaction only a petty tyrant could muster. Neighbors peeked from their porches, curtains twitching, but no one dared step in. Karen ruled our little corner of Montana with an iron fist wrapped in pastel cashmere. "You're violating HOA rules," she snapped, pausing to jab a manicured finger at me. "This dock is unapproved, and it's an environmental hazard." Her voice dripped with venom, each word a dart aimed at my chest. I clenched my fists, the cold metal of my wedding ring biting into my palm. "Karen," I said, forcing calm, "my land isn't part of your HOA. Never has been. You've got no jurisdiction here." Her eyes narrowed, lips pursing like she'd bitten a lemon. "We'll see about that," she hissed, tossing the sledgehammer down with a thud that echoed across the creek. I should have known it wouldn't end there. Karen wasn't just a busybody. She was a force of nature, a hurricane in sensible loafers. For months, she'd been hounding me about my property: too many wildflowers, fence too rustic, mailbox too unorthodox. I'd ignored her, thinking she'd tire out. Big mistake. This dock was her line in the sand, and she was ready to go to war. By noon, the creek was quiet again, but the damage was done. My dock lay in ruins, jagged planks jutting like broken bones. I sat on the bank, staring at the wreckage, the water lapping softly against the shore. The air carried the faint scent of algae and regret. I could still hear Dad's voice, low and warm, teaching me how to bait a hook right here, his calloused hands guiding mine. Losing the dock felt like losing him all over again. My chest tightened, a sob clawing at my throat, but I swallowed it down. Crying wouldn't fix this. I needed a plan. That's when I saw her, Lila, the new girl who'd moved into the old Miller place last month. She was leaning against my fence, her auburn hair catching the sunlight, a thermos of coffee in her hand. "Heard the commotion," she said, her voice soft but steady, like she'd seen worse storms than Karen. "You okay?" I shrugged, kicking a pebble into the creek. "Been better." She stepped closer, her boots sinking into the muddy bank, and handed me the thermos. "I know her type," she said, eyes glinting with something sharp. "Back in Boise, I dealt with an HOA queen just like her. Want some help?" I didn't know Lila well, but there was a fire in her that felt like an answered prayer. Over coffee, she told me her story: divorced, starting over, a former paralegal who'd once taken down a corrupt landlord with nothing but grit and a law library. "Karen's got no claim here," Lila said, pulling out her phone to show me county records she'd already dug up. "Your land's outside the HOA's boundaries." She's bluffing. My pulse quickened. For the first time all day, I felt a spark of hope, like a match flaring in the dark. We spent the next week building a case. Lila was a whirlwind, poring over property lines, digging up old deeds, even sweet-talking the county clerk into pulling records from the 80s. I catch her muttering to herself, pen tapping against her lip, her brow furrowed in concentration. At night, we'd sit on my porch, the crickets hum mingling with the clink of beer bottles. As she laid out our strategy, "She's banking on you backing down," Lila said one evening, her voice low, the porch light casting shadows across her face. "People like Karen thrive on fear, but we're not scared, are we?" I grinned, feeling a warmth I hadn't in years. Not a chance. Karen, meanwhile, wasn't idle. She'd rallied her HOA minions, plastering notices around the neighborhood about community standards and rogue residents. She even filed a complaint with the county, claiming my dock was a public nuisance. Every time I saw her cruising by in her pristine SUV, clipboard in hand, my stomach churned. But Lila kept me grounded. "She's loud, but she's sloppy," she'd say, her laugh like a bell cutting through my anger. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. One morning, as I was rebuilding a section of my fence partly to spite Karen, partly to keep Bija pickup truck rattled up my drive, out stepped Old Man Jenkins, the grizzled rancher who owned the land upstream. His face was weathered like cracked leather, but his eyes were sharp. "Heard about your dock," he growled, spitting tobacco into the dirt. "Karen tried pulling the same stunt on me years ago. Wanted my barn painted HOA-approved beige. Told her to shove it." He handed me a faded envelope. Inside was a letter from 1995, signed by the original HOA board, explicitly excluding my property and his from their jurisdiction. "Found this in my attic," Jenkins said. "Thought it might help." That letter was dynamite. Lila's eyes lit up when I showed it to her, her fingers trembling as she read. "This is it, Travis," she whispered. "This is our kill shot." We spent the next day drafting a cease and desist letter, citing the document, county records, and every legal precedent Lila could find. My hands shook as I signed it, the weight of the fight settling into my bones. This wasn't just about a dock Anna Maria, it was about standing up to a bully who'd terrorized our community for too long. The showdown came at the next HOA meeting, held in the community center that smelled of stale coffee and desperation. Karen stood at the podium, her voice dripping with fake sincerity as she rambled about protecting property values. The room was packed, neighbors shifting uncomfortably in their folding chairs, the hum of the fluorescent lights buzzing like a swarm of bees. I stood in the back, Lila at my side, the envelope clutched in my hand. When Karen opened the floor for comments, I stepped forward, my boots echoing on the linoleum. "Karen," I said, loud enough to make heads turn, "you demolished my dock without permission. You claimed it violated HOA rules. But here's the thing, me land's not in your HOA." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Karen's smile faltered. Just for a second. I held up the letter from Jenkins, reading it aloud, each word landing like a hammer blow. Lila handed out copies of the county records, her movements calm but deliberate, like a general distributing battle plans. The room erupted, neighbors whispering, some nodding, others glaring at Karen. She tried to fight back, her voice rising to a screech. "This is about community standards. You can't just do whatever you want." But the tide had turned. A woman in the front row, Mrs. Carter, who'd once gotten a $200 fine for planting tulips, stood up. "You fined me for my garden, Karen. And I'm in the HOA. But Travis isn't. Why are you targeting him?" Others chimed in, voices overlapping, years of pent-up frustration spilling out. Karen's face turned crimson, her hands gripping the podium like she might snap it in half. The final blow came when Lila stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos like a blade. "Karen, you've been served." She handed her the cease and desist letter. Her eyes locked on Karen's. The room went silent, the air thick with tension. Karen opened her mouth, but no words came. For the first time, she looked small, deflated, like a balloon losing air. In the weeks that followed, the HOA board launched an investigation. Turns out, Karen had been skimming dues for personal expenses. A scandal that spread like wildfire. She resigned in disgrace, her SUV vanishing from the neighborhood. I rebuilt my dock. Stronger this time. With Lila's help, we'd sit there at dusk, the creek's gentle ripples reflecting the fading light. And I'd feel something I hadn't in years. Peace. The fight wasn't just about a dock kit, was about standing up. About refusing to let someone like Karen steal what mattered. As the stars came out, I'd hear Dad's voice in the rustle of the pines. And I'd know justice isn't loud, but it's steady, and it always finds a way.